Let's call Advanced Auto Parts and Batteries. This is Marquis speaking.
Hi, Marquis. I need to change my oil, and I want the best.
I've got Pennzoil Platinum full synthetic, $27.99.
And that's good stuff, right?
Yes, sir. Protecting your engine from heat and sludge.
You really know your stuff. What's a good time of night to view Neptune?
Advance Auto Parts. We know everything about auto parts. Now get 5 quarts of Pennzoil Platinum Full Synthetic for just $27.99 while supplies last. See store for details. Also at participating CarQuest stores.
Michelle Obama delivering her final speech yesterday as First Lady. Her remarks struck an emotional chord at the White House.
Being your First Lady has been the greatest honor of my life, and I hope I've made you proud.
In her final formal remarks as First Lady, Michelle Obama received a standing ovation from the crowd gathered to honor the country's School Counselor of the Year. She spoke about diversity, the value of hard work, and, of course, hope.
Don't be afraid. Be focused. Be determined. Be hopeful.
The speech was part of Mrs. Obama's Reach Higher program, encouraging students to pursue higher education. Lana Zach, ABC News, the White House.
An FBI agent says Dylan Roof has sworn white supremacist symbols to court this last week. ABC's Brian Clark has more on Roof, convicted of killing 9 black worshipers during a South Carolina Bible study.
Dylan Roof is still entrenched in his white nationalist beliefs. That was part of the testimony from an FBI agent Friday who says Roof has drawn white supremacist symbols on his shoes and worn them to court. FBI agent Joseph Hamsky testifying as the penalty phase of Roof's trial continues in Charleston. A jury's deciding whether Roof should be put to death for killing 9 black worshipers at a Bible study in 2015. More family members of victims testified Friday, but Roof, acting as his own attorney, has not cross-examined any of them. Prosecutors say they expect to wrap up their case Monday. Brian Clark, ABC News.
This is ABC News.
ADT presents what to consider when considering home security. An ADT sign is more than a sign. It's a line in the sand. On one side, your family. On the other, an uncertain world.
For over 140 years, more people have chosen ADT to help prevent crime than anyone else. Get ADT starting at just $28.99 a month.
Tested, trusted, proven ADT.
With 36-month contract for licensing and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com.
I'm Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
From the KMET Weather Center for Beaumont and the Pass area on this Saturday morning, we expect a chance of rain today. Today mostly cloudy with a high 59. Tonight looks mostly cloudy, a low 51. We'll have a mostly sunny Sunday with a high 67. We'll have rain Sunday night with a low 54. We'll have morning showers Monday with a high 58. For Redlands today, there's a chance for a shower. We'll have mostly cloudy skies, our high 63. For Palm Springs, we'll have a mostly cloudy day. You expect a high of 62. I'm Rod Tanner for Smart Talk 1490 KMET.
Take KMET 1490 AM with you everywhere you go by downloading our free smartphone apps found on the KMET website, KMET1490am.com. You can also go to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store on your phone to download the free app. Now you can listen live or play any of your favorite programmers' podcasts using your smartphone. Don't miss out on the free KMET smartphone apps. Go to KMET1490am.com and download your free phone app today.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
And welcome. It's time for Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs, right here on KMET1490am.com. Alex Ferguson is joining me via phone from his hidden bunker somewhere in Los Angeles County. Great to have you on with me, as always, Alex.
Howdy, buckaroos.
Howdy, buckaroos. Hey, did you notice I'm all over the internet? Oh, wait a second. You're not one that surfs the internet pretty much, right?
Not much.
Well, let me tell you, I'm all over the internet right now. I wrote an article about the Democrat Party dying for just wanting to have a violent Marxist revolution. And the only thing holding them back, I'm Douglas V. Gibbs, by the way, for those of you new listeners, the only thing holding them back is two things. Number one, they don't want to fully expose who they totally are. And number two, conservatives are armed, and we just might be crazy enough to use those firearms, they think. And this has been picked up by WorldNet Daily, the largest political website in the world, Canada Free Press, the largest Canadian political website, InfoWars, which is Alex Jones's website, Gates of Vienna. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Let's see, Gates of Vienna, True Pundit, the Sleuth Journal, Free Republic, just a list of sites that have carried what I had to say, commented about what I had to say. And so since you are the gentleman who has been on the show with me a long time and seems to understand communism, are the left liberal dreams of a violent Marxist revolution something they are dying to do, and is it something they will commit on January 20th?
Well, if you will remember, in poetry and in essays, I have noted that Obama is not the kind of a guy who wants to surrender power in a democratic manner.
Right.
I think that these people they don't have the stones to start a revolution, but when things trend toward claiming that the election was illegitimate, that the Russians ran it, all this kind of stuff, this is the greatest. This period now, what do we got, about 14 days?
Yeah.
This 14-day period today is the greatest threat of that kind of action that America has faced since the Civil War.
I was in a pre-recording for an episode of Prophecy Club Radio, which is on like a bunch of stations around the nation, AM stations around the country. It airs tomorrow. And they said to me, it's funny because everybody suspected this would happen during the Obama administration, but it's looking more likely like it may happen during the Trump administration. And here's what I told them. I said, tyrants don't commit violent revolutions while they are in power. All they do is continue their revolution. Revolution is begun not while they're in power, but while the opposition is in power.
Well, see, I would take a different tack on that. It seems to me that while Obama has in his hands the military and police powers of the United States government, tactically, strategically, he is in the best possible position to claim that there's been a foul sufficient to justify a takeover. This is his opportunity. I don't think that the opportunity is as good.
I agree with you and disagree with you. I agree that while he has his hands on this stuff, but see, their army is not the United States Army. Their army are their brown shirts, the Black Lives Matter, the Black Panthers, Islam, and all of these other things. So first of all, it doesn't matter if they've got a position in government. Number two, while they have drummed up all these claims of improprieties or whatever by their opposition, they don't have enough hard evidence yet to really stir a revolution. They need to come. They're going to go after Trump in ways that George W. Bush never understood. I mean, they're gonna lower the hammer as much as they can, and I believe what we're going to see is the international bankers, the leftist bankers, through the Federal Reserve, collapse the economic system while Trump is in office to blame Trump, and then in the chaos to save us from that. We might see something. Now, once again, I'm not trying to be a prophet and say, oh yeah, for sure this is going to happen. It's sort of like as a Christian when it comes to the end times. It could be now, it could be 50 years from now. You don't know. I do believe that a Marxist revolution is their aim. I believe that it is inevitable. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But I'm not necessarily sure that when is January 20th, this last 2 weeks of the Obama administration, or within the first couple years of the Trump administration. But it's highly possible. And I know they dream of it. I think they do dream of Marxist revolution.
Absolutely.
But they know, this goes back to Hillary's America and and Trevor Loudon's The Enemies Within, when Obama met with the communists as a young man, he dreamed of violent revolution, and they said, no, that's not the way to do it. We need to do it peacefully from within. And it changed his mind. And I think he still believes, I think the left truly believes the way to do it is exactly that, because they want to win the hearts and minds of the revolutionaries, or their potential revolutionaries, if that makes sense. And violent revolutions, historically, while gains power for a short time, don't last long. They believe that if they're going to have a long-lasting regime, long-lasting control over the United States, it has to be done incrementally from within. And so I think that's a part, and that goes back to what I said earlier about one of the things holding them back is exposing who they really are. They don't want to expose who they really are, and they definitely don't want to do it in a violent manner, because there's enough of the American legacy still residing in the hearts of Americans to tell them, well, maybe we ought to hold off and still continue our peaceful trek towards a fundamental transformation of the United States.
Okay, I don't have a 100% argument against that. I'm simply saying that they will never, in my opinion, they will never again be in a position strategically like they are now, where they've got all the departments headed by their own leftist Marxist cronies. They've been getting rid of military officers that are pro-American and anti-communist. I think they're if they don't do it now, they miss their greatest opportunity.
And I think they believe that though this is a great opportunity, and I think you're right to a point, they also understand that great opportunities sometimes don't always come only once in a lifetime. They've had this great opportunity before, but rather than, well, here's the thing. If they were to do something, it would be doubling down on what beat them. And though I think a lot of them don't understand that, I think enough do. What lost them the last election was that they did too much. They injected too much socialism too quickly. And a violent revolution would be doubling down. So what they're going to do is not violent revolution. What they're going to do is agitation. So we will see the violence. We will see the Black Lives Matter style riots and protests. I'm not saying that they're not going to commit violence. They're going to do it in such a way that it's agitation, not full revolution.
They've already created a situation in America where our society is coming unglued.
Mm-hmm.
You've got these flash mobs attacking shopping centers. You've got the knockout game. You've got crime doubling all around the United States. Police afraid to enforce the law. You've got colleges teaching Marxism and revolution, and that's not an exaggeration at all.
Right. So why risk that advantage by exposing yourself too much?
Yeah, whatever else is for sure, the next 4 years are going to involve a lot of social disruption and probably violence.
Well, sure, Alinsky-style agitation. And, and that kind of goes back to what you and I have talked about a handful of times on this program. Not just agitation, but misdirection, smoke and mirrors, to get people to believe certain things about their opposition. And a great example is what we've talked about before, how back in 1972 you had the Tulane students who wanted to protest and be distractive at a George Bush speech when Daddy Bush was the American representative to the United Nations. He was given a speech, and they wanted to protest it because they wanted to protest against his support of the quote unquote Nixon Vietnam War, and they sought out Saul Alinsky for assistance, and Saul Alinsky said, well, that's not a very creative way of doing it, plus it'll probably get you expelled. How about you dress up as members of the Ku Klux Klan, every time he mentions the war, cheer loudly and hold up signs that say the KKK supports Bush. And that's what they did. And that was doubling down on this narrative that the left pushes, that the Republican Party is somehow the party of racists, even though it's far from the truth. And you've seen that with the Trump presidency or the Trump candidacy. They accused him of being white supremacist and racist, and there was examples of white supremacists cheering Trump. And so the question is that just smoke and mirrors, or were those just leftists playing the part?
Well, I'm looking at the war on poverty, creating a ghetto situation in which fathers are not in the home, nobody's raising the young men. We've talked about this time and again. But the brilliance of the left, and they are brilliant in their corruption.
Right.
The brilliance of the left is that they turn around and they say, look at all these black gangbangers getting shot by police. The police are hunting black men. Well, no, not at all. The police are only about 4%. Their violence is only about 4% of the overall violence. You've got a situation created by the left, created by the socialists, and they turn around and they do the blame-shame game. It's always the same. You can't beat that for diabolical.
Right, and of course it spits in the face of the United States Constitution. All of this is being done through federal dictates, federal government, in the name of federalism, when in reality the creation of the federal government was not to be involved in this way with internal issues, but to handle common defense and trade with other nations, protecting the trade routes, so on and so forth.
We have to get back to the Constitution, and that's why I hang around with you, pal, is because you got your finger on the most important artery in our civilization.
I appreciate that, and we're going to continue this conversation, plus discuss a little bit more about a few other issues, such as, here's what's coming up in the next segments. California Democrats legalize child prostitution. United Nations message, citizens should not get to vote on important issues. And California has hired Eric Holder to battle the Trump administration. Plus, Mr. Alex Ferguson has a whole new book to talk to us about today. When we come back, don't go anywhere.
You got a dent in your door, a scratch in your fender, or a scratch in your door and a dent in your fender. If you need auto detailing, if you need fire shooting decals on the side of your car, if you need a rally stripe right down the middle of your hardtop, I don't care what it is. The Patriots at All-Star Collision are the place you want to go. They're the only place to go. 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Web address allstarci.com to see all that they do and what they're all about. Phone number 951-279-9161. All-Star Collision, the kings of wreck and roll.
What's your constitutional IQ? Your quest to learn the Constitution can be fun for the whole family. Learn about the Constitution as you play the Constitution Quest board game. Learn more at constitutionquest.com. Help me fight the good fight. This radio program is funded by advertising dollars. So, if you are a business, add Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs to your business portfolio. If you are a listener, become a patron of the businesses advertising on this program. Without advertising, your weekend dose of truth ends. With more advertising, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs grows, and we will be on the way to win the battle to restore the Republic. To learn more, email us at constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com or visit douglasvgibbs.com.
Hi, this is Ed Hoffman, President Wholesale Capital Corporation, your direct mortgage lender. Real estate prices are still low, which means now's the time to buy your next home before they go up. Whether it's a home to live in, a vacation house, or an investment property, we can meet your mortgage financing needs to help you realize the next phase of your American dream. At Wholesale Capital Corporation, we make sure you get a loan that you can afford with terms that work for you. Wholesale Capital welcomes FHA buyers, conventional buyers, jumbo loan buyers, and we proudly help the U.S. military veterans take advantage of the zero down payment VA loan program. Nobody treats veterans better than Wholesale Capital Corporation. Seniors, if you're interested in creating an additional stream of income or just making your mortgage payment go away with a reverse mortgage, Wholesale Capital would love to help you. To speak with a loan officer who has your best interests in mind, call Wholesale Capital at 855-640-2020. That's area code 855-640-2020. Wholesale Capital Corporation, where we can close.
And welcome back, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs, right here on KMET 1490 AM. I'm not in the studio today. I'm broadcasting out of my office. For those of you who are at the KMET site, you're watching KMET TV, you can see that I've got my messy little office wall behind me. I've also got the NFL to my right. Yes, I'm one of those people that did not decide to protest the NFL by not watching the games. I'm too much of a fan. So if you see me looking off to the right, I'm checking scores. But anyway, the next topic I want to go into here on Constitution Radio is that as of January 1st, 2017, prostitution by minors became legal in California. SB, that's Senate Bill 1322, bars law enforcement from arresting sex workers who are under the age of 18 for soliciting or engaging in prostitution or loitering with the intent to do so. So teenage girls and boys in California will soon be, are now free to have sex in exchange for money without fear of arrest or prosecution. What they did is they changed the labeling from criminal to victim. They are now victims. Now, that by doing that, what that means is that minors involved in prostitution can't be picked up by law enforcement to get them away from their pimps and in the custody of a dramatically better solution than making it. And so, it's basically, I'm speechless on this. I know it's hard to imagine me not being able to say something, but let me say this. There's the Alameda County District Attorney Nancy O'Malley, national leader on human trafficking issues, told the media that it opens up the door for traffickers to use these kids to commit crimes and exploit them even worse. Another prosecutor insightfully observed that if traffickers wrote legislation to protect themselves, it would read like SB 1322. Have you heard about this, Mr. Ferguson?
No, I haven't. I've heard you refer to it, but I have not heard. See, to me, this is an episode of Saturday Night Live. It's got to be a joke. You can't possibly be serious that these. I don't care how degenerate they are, and I know they're degenerates, but it's just ludicrous, and it's criminal, and it's immoral, and it's a sin against God. Jesus said, anyone who misleads these children into evil things should put a grindstone around their neck and jump in the deep blue sea. They should. Well, we don't want to hurt their feelings by calling them criminals, so they're victims. But by calling them victims, law enforcement can't pick them up for the criminal activity. Of course, essentially legalizing child prostitution. It's just like these Prop 47 and 57 downgrading felonies to misdemeanors. It's like Maxine Waters saying that if a gunman walks into a store to rob the place and nobody else is armed, it's human nature for him to put down his gun because he'll feel bad. He's the only one armed. Well, she's nuts. But what I'm saying is that once you've got these felons downgraded to misdemeanors, they get released from jail, and there's no probation officer, there's no parole officer, and there's no way you can twist their arm to get them into a drug program. This is the foxes have truly taken over the henhouse. Devil's advocate here, but Alex, they've already served time in jail. Surely they've seen the error of their ways, and they don't want to go back. So they're going to do everything they can to straighten themselves out. Which is why we have 70% recidivism. These
All
are career
right.
criminals, whatever Rose Bird might have had to say on the subject.
Yeah, and now you just finished a book. Let's shift gears now back to what you've been doing with books. And we just finished a book by, it was Heather what was her last name again?
MacDonald.
MacDonald. Heather MacDonald. And what was the name of the book we just finished discussing last week?
It was The War on Cops.
The War on Cops. Okay. Well, we've got a new book, right? You've got something else now you're working on?
Well, oddly enough, the title of the book is The Communists.
The Communists.
Yeah, and the subtitle is Frank Marshall Davis, The Untold Story of Barack Obama's Mentor.
Yeah, I want to stop you there for just a second. One of the reasons why I've believed that we have not been able to get our hands on the actual copy of the quote-unquote Hawaii birth certificate is not because of, whether or not he's a citizen or not, or whether or not it exists. I believe the birth certificate has not emerged because they don't want you to see who's listed under father. I believe that it's not Barack Obama Sr. I believe it's Frank Marshall Davis.
A friend of mine showed me some pictures from the internet, which would indicate that Barack Obama doesn't look anything like Jr. doesn't look anything like Sr., but he looks a lot like Frank Marshall Davis.
Absolutely. Okay, so Frank Marshall Davis was, if I remember properly, Chicago. It was also his history, and he hooked up with a communist woman who was an editor of something. I'm trying to remember the story, and he, him and Van Jones, I guess, crossed paths even at one point. But is that an accurate background, or how did Frank Marshall Davis even emerge on the scene?
This guy was a communist back in World War II.
Wow, that far back.
Yeah, and the interesting thing, I just while I was reviewing my notes here, I noticed that there was that Hitler-Stalin pact back in 1939, I believe.
Right.
Where Stalin believed that Hitler was his soulmate, that they were so similar that the two of them could carve up the world, at least temporarily.
Right.
And so they made this pact, and of course all the communists I know personally, he was just buying time so he could prepare for an attack. He wasn't buying time. He wasn't preparing for an attack, and he liquidated, that's his term, liquidated any of his people that said that he couldn't trust Hitler. Well, what happened was that Hitler pulled Operation Barbarossa, sneak attack. That's what cost him the war. But in the meantime,
it's one of the things that cost him the war. It definitely put Germany in a position where they were fighting two fronts, which is a devastating thing to do.
Yeah, I was just looking in Jablonski's Air War, and they mentioned that the reason we won the war is because Hitler and Goering were such geniuses militarily. But the point is that this pact disaffected and disillusioned all kinds of lefties and Marxists, but it was after that pact, after it was clear that Stalin was another Hitler, that they were partners, that they carved.
Did we lose him, or did I lose me? Okay. Well, let me say this while we try to get him back on here. You look back into history in World War II, and it's funny because in Europe it's believed that fascism, what Hitler was, Mussolini was, is the opposite of communism. Communism is far left, and that fascism is far right, because Hitler proclaimed that they were the opposite of communism, when in reality it's the same animal. They're both socialists. The difference is in communism, which is, and even the term communism is a misnomer, we'll get to that. Okay. That communism is where the state takes control of the means of production. They buy it. It's a government entity, state run, in fascism, the illusion of private ownership remains in place, but how the socialists control the means of production rather than making it state-owned, they regulate it so heavily that the means of production is essentially run by the socialists through regulations. Once again, it's a even though it remains under private ownership, the private owners are bought and paid for and controlled by government. So in the end, the result's the same: government-controlled means of production. Nazism, that's what it was, the National Socialists. So while a lot of people believe they were on the opposite ends of the spectrum, they're actually together. Do we have you back, Alex?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to say that people don't realize that the act that started World War II, which was the attack on Poland, the Nazis attacked from one side of Poland, and the communists attacked from the other side.
Right.
By design, they divided it up between them, and the massacre, the Katyn Forest massacre, that was so trumpeted by the left, turns out it was Stalin killed like 35,000 Polish officers and intellectuals because they were too loyal to their own country. They were too good Christians. So
right.
he tortured them, and it didn't work, so he just went ahead and murdered them all. But anyway, the point is that it was after that this Frank Marshall Davis, this diabolical bastard, became a communist. And as a communist, he ran two different newspapers: the Chicago Star, which people in Chicago called the Red Star,
right,
and then later he moved to Honolulu and headed up another communist newspaper, the Honolulu Record. Now, this guy was a friend of Robeson, Paul Robeson.
Right.
He was a friend of a guy named Robert Taylor, who was the grandfather of Valerie Jarrett, who now runs the White House and keeps Obama on a leash, apparently.
Right. Yeah.
These people are this guy is communist to the point where that he insulted and vilified FDR. He insulted and vilified Churchill. He sided with the communists at all times, and it's amazing that we suffer from institutionalized mass blindness as to who and what Obama is.
Are the political descendants of Frank Marshall Davis, and this goes back to our first topic, because of who Frank was and what he taught and what they learned from him, combined with the Alinsky-style tactics, are they mad enough, diabolical enough to usher in a Bolshevik-style revolution in the United States?
That's the goal. That's the ultimate goal. And when you look, you hear about, so he happened to know somebody. Obama says that Bill Ayers was just a guy in the neighborhood,
right.
That kind of stuff. When you look at the list of people that we know are the major influences on Obama's life, you've got Jeremiah Wright, Marxist; Bill Ayers, Marxist; Bernardine Dorn, Marxist; Van Jones, Marxist. His father and mother were both communists. Rashid Khalidi, he's more of a actually jihadist than a Marxist. Tony Rezko, a criminal in jail now, a defender of the Palestinian cause. These are this guy could not get a pass to go into the White House as a visitor if he hadn't been elected. Right. The FBI would never tolerate such an obvious threat to our nation if it weren't for the fact that he's got the political power.
That goes back to Trevor Loudon's film, The Enemies Within. enemieswithinmovie.com if you want to look it up. And he says, based on information he found in our libraries, this is public information, this is available to all Americans, that we have over 100 representatives in Congress between the House and the Senate who are either communists or have ties to communist or socialist organizations, one of which is the Democratic Socialists of America.
Well, this is the same.
So the infiltration's there.
Well, this is the same blame shame game that we've had all this time. The left does it every time. Back in the 50s, we knew that Joe McCarthy was right. We saw the Korean War go down. We saw the spy after spy being caught. We saw our nuclear advantage being stolen by the American Communist Party. Everybody was sure. But over a period of time, the leftist Marxist news media, the colleges, have twisted everything around so that the guilty party is the guy who pointed out Stalin's agents. These are the agents of a man
and the
who
book
killed
The Communist
people by
that you're reading now about Frank Marshall Davis, that talks about how Frank Marshall Davis was a part of that, right?
He was an essential part of it. He was a high-ranking member of the Communist Party. Now people say, well, that was when he was, in the 1930s and 40s and 50s. Hey, he never renounced his Marxism.
Right.
And Obama is referred to, the few people that went to college with him that will talk about him say he was a Marxist revolutionary, a self-proclaimed avid Marxist revolutionary. And people say, well, that was, in college, kids can do that. Yeah. When did he say he doesn't believe in it anymore? When did he renounce Marxism? Because the people that renounce Marxism, by the way, they, like Boudin's or Elizabeth Bentley, they wrote books and were slandered as finks, as rats, as witch hunters, all this kind of stuff. I don't see Obama doing that. I don't see Frank Marshall Davis doing that. They stayed true.
When we return, the European Union boss says citizens should not get to vote on important issues. In California, turned more blue in the last election. We are under the onslaught of a supermajority in Sacramento. And now, to protect themselves from the Trump administration, California has hired Obama's good buddy, Eric Holder, the former Attorney General, Justice Department, as a California henchman to battle the Trump administration. That and more after the break. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, this is Ed Hoffman, President Wholesale Capital Corporation, your direct mortgage lender. Real estate prices are still low, which means now's the time to buy your next home before they go up. Whether it's a home to live in, a vacation house, or an investment property, we can meet your mortgage financing needs to help you realize the next phase of your American dream. At Wholesale Capital Corporation, we make sure you get a loan that you can afford with terms that work for you. Wholesale Capital welcomes FHA buyers, conventional buyers, jumbo loan buyers, and we proudly help the U.S. military veterans take advantage of the zero down payment VA loan program. Nobody treats veterans better than Wholesale Capital Corporation. Seniors, if you're interested in creating an additional stream of income or just making your mortgage payment go away with a reverse mortgage, Wholesale Capital would love to help you. To speak with a loan officer who has your best interests in mind, call Wholesale Capital at 855-640-2020. That's area code 855-640-2020. Wholesale Capital Corporation, where we can close.
The true patriots of All-Star Collision have been proudly serving the Inland Empire for over 20 years. Built on honesty, integrity, quality, and old-fashioned customer service, we offer lifetime warranties for our work, and every vehicle serviced by All-Star Collision is washed, detailed, The headlights polished, fluids are checked and topped off, safety checked, and returned in showroom condition. We offer free estimates, are approved by major insurance companies, and accept all claims for all cars and trucks. We use computerized frame straightening to factory specifications, offer fiberglass body repair and paint, free local pickup and delivery, and after-hours towing. Mention this radio program at drop-off and receive $100 off or a free rental car for up to 5 days during your repair. Visit us at allstarci.com or at 522 Railroad Street in Corona. Call us at 951-279-9161. We are the kings of wreck and roll.
Welcome back, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs here on KMET. I erroneously earlier said United Nations. It's actually EU. Here's the way this starts. Are you ready, Alex? Well, it's going to knock you out of your seat, brother. On his way out of office, the rotating head of the European Union Council called on EU leaders to stop letting citizens vote on important issues that could threaten the increasingly controversial superstate. Citing recent anti-establishment votes in Britain and Italy, the EU Council boss blasted the adventures of letting citizens decide the fate of their own nations in referenda. The EU boss drew a quick rebuke from advocates of self-government. But while the comments shocked some analysts, the controversial remarks should not have been surprising, especially considering the EU's long history of trampling all over voters to empower the superstate in defiance of the people's will. The extremist sentiment also follows repeated warnings from European leaders that globalist fanatics in Brussels were plotting to destroy self-government and nation-state on the road toward regional and then global governments. The comments from the EU boss were crystal clear. Quote, I am asking EU leaders to stop with adventures like the British and Italian referendums on domestic issues which pose a threat to the EU, unquote, said Slovak Prime Minister and EU Council boss Robert Fico as he passed the rotating reins of the EU Council to the next leader on January 2nd, 2017. In essence, Fico was calling for citizens of European countries ensnared in the EU to lose their right to decide their own fate. Now, this is amazing because this is a continent that still in recent memory, although those who remembered have now passed on for the most part, except for a handful, were embroiled in 2 world wars that were started by systems who were totalitarian in nature and did not give the citizens a much say once they were in power, and also, in recent memory, witnessed the fall of the Berlin Wall, the fall of the Soviet Union, communism, which was a scourge on Eastern Europe, that also did not give the citizens the right to decide their own fate governmentally. And did you notice where this leader was from? He's Slovakia, eastern, I think it's the eastern side of Czechoslovakia, which used to be a part of the the Eastern European communist countries behind the Iron Wall, or Iron Curtain, should I say. What is your thoughts? Is this the American Democrat wet dream to follow that kind of pathway? How dare we let the people vote on what's important? Let them worry about stupid little stuff, but when it's important, the ruling elite who know better than the people should be doing all of that. Right? Is that what the wet dream of the left is?
I question the efficacy of your channel changer. I think you're stuck on Saturday Night Live. This has got to be a joke. But the worst part of it is, and this is something people don't understand. They didn't understand it back in the 50s, and they don't understand it now. The left exists. The left is fanatic. There are people in this world who get off on controlling other human beings, controlling their lives to whatever extent possible. The greater the extent, the better. And they keep coming back. They disguise themselves. They shed their skin and come back as now it's communism with a human face or whatever it happens to be. Democratic socialism, call it whatever you like. These people do not give up, and they've got to be fought because they will enslave the world if at all possible, and they intend to make it possible.
Well, back in 2012, Czech President Klaus warned that the EU superstate was in the final phases of eliminating national sovereignty and self-government. And when he said that, he was viciously attacked by the EU's minions and armies of tax-funded propagandists. And now, as we're watching the EU imploding amid a public uprising, the mask is coming off. I mean, we are seeing who they truly are. It is a globalist establishment, fanatical hostility to freedom, and self-government is becoming, it's plain for everybody to see that that's what they're up to. And the interesting thing about it is, we've seen this before. Did we not learn from history?
We do not learn from history, and the thing that again, I'm just going through this book. I read this book a long time ago, but I'm going through it again. It's talking about how in the 1950s they got clergymen, and it's been going on since the turn of the century. The churches, the Protestant churches, have been involved in this communist movement a long time. According to this, 800 Protestant ministers were members of the American Peace Mobilization, which was a communist front organization. 800 of them. There are certain segments of our society that you got to watch. And these church people, these college professors, these cinematographers, they're part of the, not all of them, but that's where you'll find the rats. That's where you find the people that want to have a 1984 George Orwell world.
It is amazing that there are any human beings that think it's a good idea. But the government can be trusted. It's benevolent, don't you know? Or at least that's the thought process. And what we are looking at is exactly what you said, an Orwellian kind of scheme that is emerging. And also Animal Farm comes to mind. And I think these people like this EU boss who's saying this kind of thing is, yeah, we're all created equal, but some are created more equal than others. Or at least that's a reference to the pigs. What they had to say. Napoleon, I think it was the name of the head pig in Animal Farm, where it was basically a communist takeover of the farm. This is very Orwellian in nature. Now, that said, America is trying to follow down the same path, and America's voice was loud enough in the Trump victory to win it. Here's the question. Is Trump the guy to stop this downhill slide in America? Is the United States able to put the skids on enough where it won't go back to the Democrats' horrifying vision? And also, what's going to happen to California? Because, California is going right down the same road of Greece and Detroit and Venezuela.
Yeah, California is just about a lost cause, for sure. I don't know what the story is on Trump. I know that if Hillary had won, it would have been the end of human civilization, and that's no kidding.
Right.
But what we're going to get from Trump, he's kind of a wild card, and we're just going to have to.
Yeah. Right. We're not really sure.
Have to keep an eye on him.
Yeah. I think it's like I tell people. He was number 15 on my list of 17. Republicans. I was a Scott Walker fan. But that said, reading The Art of the Deal and paying attention to what he's done so far, I think if he was the New York liberal that our good friend Jasmine says he is, we would know by now. But based on who he's choosing around him, not the kind of choices a person who wants to, who is wearing a liberal veil is capable of. I think his choices are very conservative. I think Mr. Trump is sort of like the Tea Party. The Tea Party emerged 8 years ago, not because they're a conservative group, but because Obama was enough to shake these people into getting involved. Most Tea Party people, they'll tell you, they weren't involved in politics until Trump came along. Obama came along. Now, Trump, I think, same thing. He saw the devastating results of leftism under the Obama administration, went, whoa, okay, I need to be involved. And it woke him up, and I'm not sure he was left or right. I mean, I think he leaned right. And when I say right, I mean, when it comes to the political spectrum. But I think ultimately he saw the devastation of the left. It's nothing like the truth of the left to make you want to go to the right.
Well, Trump was a businessman first
and foremost. And Democrats and Republicans both have money, so he worked with all of them.
Yeah, and I think that he wasn't that interested in politics, but I think that Obama piqued his interest, and now he's a quick study. He's learning fast.
Right.
I think you're right. He's learning from the right people.
Okay. Now, we mentioned California earlier. This is our final All-Star Collision big story of the week. All-Star Collision, allstarci.com. If you've got a nick or a ding or been in a crash, that's the place to go. In Corona, allstarci.com. The Kings of Wreck and Roll. Here's the beginning of an article at the New York Times. Girding for 4 years of potential battles with President-elect Donald J. Trump, Democratic leaders of the California legislature announced Wednesday that they had hired Eric Holder Jr., who was Attorney General under President Obama, to represent them in any legal fights against the new Republican White House. The decision by the legislature to retain Mr. Holder, who is now a prominent Washington lawyer, is the latest sign of the ideological battle that may play out over the next 4 years between this predominantly Democratic state and Washington. Hillary Clinton, the Democratic candidate for president, defeated Mr. Trump by more than 4 million votes in California. Quote, having the former Attorney General of the United States brings us a lot of firepower in order to prepare to safeguard the values of the people of California, unquote, Kevin De Leon, the Democratic leader of the Senate, said in an interview. Quote, this means we are very, very serious, unquote. Mr. De Leon said he expected California to challenge Washington and defend itself from policies instituted in Washington on issues including the environment, immigration, and criminal justice. He said California Democrats decided to turn to Mr. Holder as they watched Mr. Trump assemble his cabinet and begin to set the tone for his presidency. Quote, it was very clear that it wasn't just campaign rhetoric, Mr. De Leon said, of Mr. Trump's proposals over the past year. He was surrounding himself with people who are a very clear and present danger to the economic prosperity of California. Of course, I'm in the opinion that the Democrats are a clear and present danger to the economic prosperity in California, but that's beside the point. What's your thoughts? Mr. Holder is now going to be the main henchman, a legal henchman against the Trump administration for California, as California's supermajority is taking us in a ridiculous direction that I think is going to lead to gun confiscation. I think it's going to lead to carbon tax. We've already seen, we talked about earlier, the legalization of child prostitution. I think we're going to start seeing in California a rise of hate crime laws and so on and so forth. I mean, anything they can imagine, they're going to pass.
You might be going too hard on this child prostitution legalization thing. You know, it gives the legislators something to do in the evening. You know, they're striking out for entertainment. If you'll remember, I think I titled it "Jackals in the Hen House, Firebugs in the Barn." Mm-hmm. I did a profile of Holder, and there's nothing good there. He has sided with the terrorists against his own country time and time again. When he was in college, he did a takeover of his university, armed takeover. He let the macheteros, the Puerto Rican terrorists who had set off bomb after bomb in America, he let them out of jail illegally. He pardoned, on behalf of Bill Clinton, he pardoned Frank Rich, who was the biggest tax fraud in American history, a guy who worked with Iran when Iran was designated a terrorist state and you couldn't work with him. He's the one that let the Black Panthers off for intimidating people at a voting venue. This guy is bad news from beginning to end, and that's why the turds that run this state hired him.
Well, and also this brings to mind that there's a lot of fears because there's a lot of leftists. De Leon being one of the people pushing for this, a Cal exit, that California leaves the United States, secedes from the United States, become its own republic, maybe even join Mexico. And I've told people over and over again that I don't see that happening simply because I don't think the Democrats of the United States would allow that. That's an awful lot of electoral votes, representation in Congress, and tax money to just let walk away. And if the Democrats lose California, they lose the United States. But on the same token, I'm starting to wonder how much more California is going to become this haven for Democrat leftist utopianists, and how long it will be before it takes on such a mirror image of Venezuela, Detroit, and Greece that either it completely fails and winds up with a population the size of Rhode Island. I mean, aside from the homosexuals, Hollywood elitists, and legal aliens, and if that would be enough to encourage the state to turn around. Well, and I'm going to leave it at that because we just ran out of time, brother. Say your final 30 seconds.
Okay, 30 seconds. I'm still working on getting more material into the website. It's conservativecannonade.org.
And I am Douglas V. Gibbs, douglasvgibbs.com, politicalpistachio.com. And God bless America. God bless you, the listeners. And remember, united we stand, combined we kick butt. Thank you, Alex, for joining me. Thank you, audience, for joining me. We'll see you next week.
The preceding was a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
This is 1490 AM KMET, Banning, Beaumont, Redlands, and Palm.